Alright, bless up guys, back again for another class. Now we're here to close off chapter 4, and we went through settings, we went through characters, now we're going to go through themes. And obviously, we're looking at themes such as racism, prejudice, and we're kind of looking on roles in society, because chapter 4 is really all about the outcast, right? It's all about outcasts, which is Curly's wife, who is outcasted as the woman on the ranch, Crooks, who is outcasted as a black man, Candy, who is outcasted because he's old, they don't take him into town for the cool things, and Lenny outcasted because of his mind state. And what we can look at is just the different levels of how these prejudices affect these characters. You understand? And as we go along in this class, I'm going to show you how each of them has been treated differently. But then we can also look at the fact that it's very obvious that the lowest part of the scale in this American society is the black person. You understand? Is the theme of racism, is the fact that no matter how talented Crooks is, he's seen mostly as a busted back black person. Alright? Let's go for a summary in chapter 4. All the men go into town on Saturday night except Lenny, Candy, and Crooks. Crooks reluctantly allows Lenny into his room where they talk, and Crooks taunts Lenny that George may not return, leaving Lenny on his own. Lenny begins to panic, and this thought and Crooks Lenny begins to panic at this thought, and Crooks is forced to apologize in an attempt to calm Lenny down. Candy joins them, and he and Lenny let slip to Crooks their intention to buy a farm. They are interrupted by Curly's wife, who is looking for company. Candy and Crooks resent her presence, and when Crooks orders her out of his room, she attacks him verbally, using her superior social status as a white woman. Now, many things that we can look on, but let's just go straight into the quotations for themes. Right? Now, the first theme, Lenny is asking Crooks why he ain't wanted. Right? And let's go back at it. Right? Well, I got a right to have a light. You go on and get out of my room. I ain't wanted in the bunkhouse, and you ain't wanted in my room. Right? So let's look at that. The presence of Crooks isn't allowed in the bunkhouse, right? And he says, why ain't you wanted? Lenny asks. Because I'm black. They play cards in there, but I can't play because I'm black. They say I stink. Well, I tell you, all of you stink to me. Now, that's very interesting, because at the end of the day, Lenny isn't being allowed in Crooks' room because Crooks wants to have this for himself. Lenny doesn't even realize that the reason he's not wanted is because of his skin color. So it reaches a point where we're seeing just how slow Lenny might be to catching on to things, especially social structures and what is happening around him. But we have to also keep in mind that with this social status, Lenny is learning a whole heap of things when it comes to being wanted. And then Crooks uses that feeling of unwantedness to make Lenny feel unwanted by telling him that George isn't going to come back. That gets Lenny a little bit agitated, and as we know from what he did to Curly's hand, nobody wants to really mess with Lenny now. Alright, moving on to that now. Moving on to the next quote. We mentioned this in characters before, and I mention it again, where you said this is just a nigga talking and a busted back nigga, so it don't mean nothing. Now, a lot is happening right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, and we're noticing that just being black will cause people to not want to be around them, will cause people to think that they're violent, to devalue what is being said. And this is very evident in this novel. This is back before the civil rights movements of the 60s. This is during the Great Depression, where rich whites were losing their money and were being lowered to what they consider the standards of poor people and black people. And now what he's saying is that as a black person, what he says means nothing to these white people on the ranch. Because even with their lower financial status, even with Crooks' talent, they don't see his opinion as valid just because he's black. So this is why the theme of racism and this theme of roles in society and status and class is very important in this book, because it moves a lot of things. And it pushes Crooks to curse out Curly's wife, who comes to his room, and then what happens? She puts him in his place. Now, In characters, we spoke about the issue of George possibly not coming back. But, right. So, let's look at how Curly's wife reacted to Crooks. Now, before I even go on this quotation, because this is a very heavy quotation, I want us to also understand something, that Curly's wife as a white woman, right? And we're even noticing this nowadays, that there are a lot of white women that use their privilege and empower it. We noticed that situation that happened with the lady in the park who says she's going to call someone and tell them that a black man is trying to assault her. This is something that back then would empower a whole heap of things to happen. Emmett Till is somebody who was lynched because it was said he whistled at a white woman. And that white woman whistling at this white woman was seen as something a black person wasn't allowed to do. And then there are a lot of white people in this time who empower that and use that as a reason to get something done, to beat up and kill and hang and lynch black people. So Curly's wife now, who feels very powerless, right, in general, nobody wants to talk to her, she's seen as a tramp, she's now left with all of the outcasts of the ranch, and she feels very powerless. So what does she do? She taps into her last resource of power, which is her whiteness, and she uses it to attack Crooks. She turned to him in scorn. "Listen, nigger," she said, "you know what I can do to you if you open your trap?" Crooks stared hopelessly at her, and then he sat down on his bunk and drew into himself. She closed on him. "You know what I could do?" Crooks seemed to grow smaller, and he pressed himself against the wall. "Yes, ma'am." "Well, you keep your place then, nigga. I could get you strung up on a tree so easy it ain't even funny." Crook had reduced himself to nothing. There was no personality, no ego, nothing to arouse either like or dislike. He said, "Yes, ma'am," and his voice was toneless. If you notice, the author is looking on not just what she's saying, but what this has done to what would have been a strong black man, a talented black man, the stable book that does something that nobody else in the ranch can do. And she used her white privilege as a woman especially to threaten him, to attack him. It's almost as if she shot a gun at him. Because she's saying, "I, as just a white woman, can get you hung on a tree." She said, "I could get you strung up on a tree so easy it ain't even funny." Right? And then his response, not only upset, it's not only to be reduced to nothing, but then to put himself in this place and show the respect that she was asking for by saying, "Ma'am, yes, ma'am." When he was at one point cursing her out and running her away, right? Because right before that he said, "You got no right coming in a colored man's room. You got no rights messing around in here at all. No, you just get out and get out quick. If you don't, I'm going to ask the boss not to ever let you come in the bar no more." He thought that he had that power being stable, but being that this was his quarters. And she reminded him that even though this is his quarters, this is a white man's America. And in a white man's America, this woman had power. Now, that is one of the main things we wanted to look at, is the fact that one of the main themes in this book is social status, is class. But in chapter 4, Steinbeck really shows us how class is reduced simply to skin color and race, right? There are many different ways where the class comes out, which is mindset, which is mental status, physical status, so Lenny kind of moves up the ladder a little bit because he's strong. Candy lowers because he's weak and useless because of his old age. But then because Candy has more intelligence, it pushes him up again. But all of that said and done, who is at the bottom of the pile? The black man. And even in this moment where he's trying to show strength, he's whittled down to nothing. And the author shows that now by using certain phrases, that he was down to nothing. He shrank. He became small. And you could see it in his face. So it's a very important chapter, because moving on to the next chapters, we are now more aware of what each character thinks of their own class, what each character sees in their skin color. And this becomes very important. Now, an assignment is coming where we'll look on the themes and we'll look on all the different things. And I want you guys to look out for that. Please do the work when it is set. Alright? Other than that, we'll move to chapter 5 next. Big up yourself.